This is Geoff Millard with TruthOut.org sitting with Mark Wilkerson. Mark is a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War who's been AWOL for the last 19 months. Tomorrow morning, very early, he'll be turning himself in at Fort Hood, Texas. Mark, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about why you first went into the military.
Well, first off, my family was in the military. My father was in the military, my uncle, even my grandma and both of my grandparents served in World War II. So from a young age, it was kind of ingrained in me that the military was going to be the natural step for me to take. And I actually enlisted before September 11th. But after September 11th, I had a new resolve to join and to go through with the experience because I felt at that time like somehow I could avenge those people who had been killed during September 11th.
And what was your experience like on active duty after September 11th?
Well, I went to basic training in June 2002, shortly after graduation. Ended up in Fort Hood, Texas in February 2003, and I ended up deploying with the 720th Military Police Battalion to Iraq. And it was during Iraq that I really started to open my eyes because of some of the experiences that I had had.
And so did you go to Iraq with an understanding that the war was wrong, or did you go to Iraq with an understanding that this was the right thing to do? What was your mindset actually going to Iraq?
Well, actually, on the build-up to Iraq and all the way at the beginning of the deployment, I was very supportive of the war in Iraq. I was very supportive of the president, and I felt that somehow this, like I said before, would avenge those people who had been killed. And I thought there was a connection there at the time, and I was very optimistic about the good things we could do for the people of Iraq.
And what are some of your experiences in Iraq that actually helped to change your mind in all of that?
Well, the mission of our unit and the clearest mission that any of us could come up with was that we were trying to win the hearts and the minds of the Iraqi people so that they could be free to build a democracy there. And then from almost the minute I hit the ground in Iraq, I started seeing how the exact opposite of that was going to happen. Rather than win their hearts and minds, we were only alienating the American people and ourselves further from the rest of the world.
And when you were redeployed to the States, how long did it take you before you made the decision to go AWOL?
Well, my unit was deployed in Iraq from March 2003 to March 2004. When we returned, 2 weeks after we returned, I applied for conscientious objector, and I did that based on some conversations with some NCOs and some sergeants that I had had.
And what was your application like? How did you go through the application process, and was it approved or denied?
Well, the actual filling out of the paperwork and all that took about a week, and that was in March, and then it was denied in November.
Okay, and then you decided to go AWOL after it was denied, or did you appeal it? What was the steps in between your conscientious objector and your actually taking the steps to go absent without leave?
Well, the application process, as I said, went from March to November. In July of that same year, we found out we would be redeploying to Iraq in January of 2005. So when I found that out, it sort of, once again, it strengthened my resolve to get out of the military. So when it was denied in November, we then applied for a rebuttal. And basically what a rebuttal is it takes every point that they had made as to reasons why I'm not a conscientious objector, and it shows why I am truly one. So we did that, and they told me that it would not be looked at or reviewed until I returned from Iraq more than a year from that point. So I made the very difficult decision at that point to go AWOL, and up to this time I told myself I wouldn't do it. And so it was a very tough decision for me to make, but in the end I felt I did what was right.
Now, you lived on your own in AWOL for about 19 months. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, for the first 1 or 2 months, it was a very difficult time. I was very paranoid. I was unsure of what the civilian police could do to me. I was unsure of who knew where I was and who could be in trouble for supporting me. So, and then after a while, I just got to a point where I didn't care if I was caught or not. I got a job. I started driving my vehicle again, and I eventually got my own place again and tried my best to live on with my life. Now, throughout this process, I read more. I looked into more news shows. I made an effort to educate myself so I could further just give more reason to why I did what I did, and try to look at the history of our country, the history of empires, the history of our world, to all connect to reasons why what I did was right.
Now, at this time, you're a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War, and so I'd have to assume that at some point during the time that you were living underground, you became a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. I was wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about what it was like to join IVAW and how you came across IVAW.
Well, I came across IVAW by meeting through this person, through this person, through this person. You know, I eventually came across someone who told me a little bit about what IVAW was. And then I met some of its members, and we had an instant bond. When you're a veteran of any foreign war, no matter what you think when you come back about war, you gain a bond. And so the fact that these people, when I told them my story, they became instantly supportive of me and my decision to go AWOL. So I instantly found a connection there, and then finding out some of the activist work they were doing, some of the resistance work, it was a no-brainer for me to become a proud member of IVAW.
Now, you're going to turn yourself in to Fort Hood, Texas. Right now, we're at Camp Casey. Why did you choose Camp Casey as a grounds to take refuge just before you turn yourself in?
Well, that process came down slowly, but I found out that Cindy Sheehan had said that this was a place where war resistors can come and feel safe, and I had never been to Camp Casey. So when I came here, and we're sitting in a field of crosses right now, and these people who live here and who are down here right now are very supportive of what I'm going through, and they want to put an end to the war, and I respect that. And they want members of government to know that you need to truly support your troops and not just say you do, and you need to do it. And so I found an instant connection with all of these people.
As our viewers know, one of the things that Lieutenant Watada said was that if we expect to end the war and to support war resistors, we need to truly support them. Do you feel like you've had that support in your time being AWOL, and especially down here at Camp Casey?
Well, down here was where I have not met so many great people in one place in my life, but I started to come across fellow veterans were the biggest supporters, whether they were Vietnam veterans or Gulf War or Iraq War veterans. They were all most of the comments I received when people found out about this was positive. I got a lot of support from my family and friends, and it just, I don't feel alone anymore, and I'm so happy for that.
And you're definitely not alone. You seem to be part of a blossoming trend of GI resistance. Do you feel a part of a GI movement, or do you think at this point it's just piecemeal? How do you see the GI resistance to the Iraq War?
Well, I feel it's an epidemic, and I feel as though more and more people want to speak out. The entire time I was going through the conscientious objector process, I had soldiers come up to me and pat me on the back and say, I'm with you, and I'm too scared to do it, but I support you. And I just tried to remember all the history that goes on through this. I am part of a growing number of veterans, past, present, and future resistors, who I just feel a real bond, a real connection with. And I just try to remember those soldiers in my unit who came up to me and said that they supported me. That got me through.
And in a few hours, you're going to turn yourself in to Fort Hood. What are you feeling right now?
Well, I think I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared and a little bit nervous, but I just try to remember that the spirit of Camp Casey, the spirit of all these people who I've met along the way is with me. And I try to look forward to a future without the military, a future in which I can speak my mind, and I can tell my story, and I can tell the truth, and we can speak for veterans who can't speak for themselves, either because they're not alive or they're too afraid.
And again, in just a few hours, you will be turning yourself in. What do you think is going to happen after you turn yourself in to Fort Hood authorities?
Well, there are several different options that could happen, but I'm trying not to focus on maybe the prison aspect or the court-martial aspect, although I realize that could become a part of my reality. But for now, I'm just trying to, I will never apologize for what I did. I feel that what I did was right, but I'm willing to accept the consequences now. Whatever that is, I know I can hold my head up high, and I'm going to do my best to show no fear and to go through it with love in my heart and hope for my future and hope for the future of the nation as well.
If you had one message that you could deliver to the American public, what would that be?
I think the big message that I want to get across is just support the troops. And when I say support the troops, I mean so much more than just putting a yellow ribbon on your vehicle. It means helping a soldier seek help if you believe they are suffering in their mind, and also making sure that they that they're able to tell their story, because every veteran has a story and it needs to be told, and the best way for them to be able to move on with their lives is by knowing that they can share their stories and their thoughts with other people. And that is the most important thing, I believe, for the American people to know.
This has been Geoff Millard for TruthOut.org at Camp Casey in Crawford, Texas, speaking with Mark Wilkerson, Iraq veteran against the war, turning himself in to Fort Hood tomorrow morning.